Hey everybody, hope you guys are doing good today. Monday morning, time to get started back on our continuing series of lure categories. And today's category is flatside crankbaits, which are really good. Everybody knows, they're good for the cold water. I'm going to go over in detail about the flatside crankbait, specifically about the Megabass Sonic side flatside crankbait versus like the traditional handmade models that really got the technique famous. But hey, just before we get going here, I just wanted to remind everybody that this Thursday from 6 to 9 p.m., Johnny has his advanced electronics seminar on Fish the Moment. If you guys are interested in really upping your understanding of sonar and offshore fishing, this is the seminar you don't want to miss. You can sign up at fishthemoment.com this Thursday for that. I think there's a few more spots open for it. So anyway, let's get into it here. First of all, I like to give a little bit of history about lure categories before we start talking about it, because I think that's pertinent to the conversation. But the flatside crankbaits, it was one of those deals that was a regional type of a phenomenon starting out in eastern Tennessee, eastern Kentucky, eastern Tennessee, sort of like the jerkbait was here in the Missouri Ozarks. The flatside crankbaits can be traced back to all those eastern TVA lakes, Fort Loudon, Telco, Watts Bar, all that type of stuff. All those guys down there, they started out quite a long time ago, hand carving these things out of different type of cedars, wood, that type of stuff. And there's been a lot of different flatside crankbaits come on the market over the years, but it's sort of one of those niche baits that has not really caught on across the country, but there's some really good applications for it that we're going to talk about today. But specifically, what I want to talk about is my favorite flatside crankbait, which is the Megabass Sonic side. This is a plastic crankbait. It's got a circuit board lip. It's got an internal balancer system that's fixed, so the bait is silent. It doesn't make any noise, which is really important in flatside crankbaits. And depending upon the size test line that you use this particular bait on, it's going to run 4 to 6 feet deep. Here is a traditional handmade model. To tell you the truth, I can't even remember where I got this. I got it, a friend of mine, Matt Heron, that fishes the Elite Series, he sort of clued me in on this a little bit. But it's a flatside crankbait, handmade, custom made. I don't even know if it's balsa or cedar, I'm not sure. But this is sort of like the typical flatside crankbait that, is most people are familiar with. So here's the difference in the two. So the difference is how good is the flatside, is the Megabass Sonic side versus the handmade ones, and what are the applications for it. First of all, let's talk a little bit about when to use them. Flatside crankbaits are notorious for being really good in the early pre-spawn up until the water temperature starts to get into the mid-50s. There's a time frame, and this is what's so critical. One thing I found about flatsides, it's one of the most temperature sensitive baits I've ever fished. You've got a lure time frame as far as water temperature goes from about, say, 42, 43 degrees up until the very max of like 55, more actually like 52, 53. So you've got about a 5-degree window when this bait is really good. And another thing about the flatside crankbait is the water temperature has to be on the rise for this bait to work real good. It's not like, say, in the fall time of the year when the water temperatures start to cool down below 50 degrees. The flat sides aren't that effective there, but when you have the pre-spawn, when the temperature starts to rise a little bit, that's when these baits really excel. And there's a couple different situations that you want to remember fishing them in. First of all, you need to fish, whatever rock cover available that you have. My favorite for a flatside crankbait is a chunk rock, 45-degree angle, but you can catch them on bluffs, you can catch them on pea gravel, you can catch them on mud, but that's the ones that I've done the best on. The chunk rock, like say the basketball size rock and smaller, where your boat is like maybe 10 foot off the bank and it's in, maybe 7 to 10 foot of water. That's sort of the slope I like. And another thing that's really critical about the flat sides is the water clarity. in the pre-spawn on these particular baits, you want dirty water. That's because what's going to happen is it puts those fish right up on the bank. When you have water temperatures that are rising into the low, from the mid 40s into around the upper 40s into low 50s, this is the time of year that it puts more big fish in like that 1 to 3 foot zone than any other time of the year. So absolutely the ideal situation for me fishing flatside crankbaits is water visibility of like around 12 inches, water that has basically gotten dirtier in a hurry, like you've had some rain come in the water and it dirtied the water up. It didn't make it muddy, but it just stained it up to like that 12-inch visibility range. And cold water, that's when these things really excel. And another thing about the flatside crankbaits, it's all for, then I'm going to talk about, there's one application I use them in summer, but in the pre-spawn, it's all about the crawfish patterns. I use different type of crawfish patterns on the sonic side. Just depending upon the water clarity, I'll mix it up. But crawfish patterns are the key. The same with like on the handmade ones. The time that I like these handmade ones, now these things are light. These are like, you got to throw them on a spinning rod with like 8-pound test line. The times I like the handmade balsa ones like this are when the water is pretty dirty, like 6 inches of visibility, and those fish are super shallow. It's like the water's 50 degrees, you got 6 inches of visibility, and these fish are like in a foot or two of water. These smaller size, you can notice the difference in size between the sonic side and the handmade ones, so it's a little bit smaller. The smaller size in that super shallow water will get you more bites. You don't ever want to use like a big bait when those fish are super shallow like that. You got to, unless you've got some immediate access to deep water. But if I'm cranking rocky banks, dirty water, and it's cold, I'm using the handmade balsa ones or the cedar or whatever they're made of. Now, the sonic side is my go-to versatile bait for lots of different applications in the during the pre-spawn. I'm fishing this bait around rock all the time. The thing that I found the best as far as the sonic side in the pre-spawn is this is one of the best riprap lures you can have. If you've got a lake that has lots of riprap in it, riprap type banks, getting tight on that bank, paralleling this thing with the sonic side is just a killer way to catch them in the pre-spawn. What I do is I'll take this, I throw this particular when it's big enough and it's beefy enough to throw it on a bait caster. So I throw it on the Megabass Orochi Jerkbait Special. It's got a fairly medium soft tip on it. I'm usually using 8 to 10 pound test line, making a long cast parallel to those riprap banks and trying to get this bait down sort of into that 4 to 5 foot zone, especially if you got water visibility, in that 1.5 to 2.5 foot range, which that's the best visibility for the sonic side. Same deal with the rocky banks. If I'm fishing chunk rock banks, channel swing banks, pea gravel, whatever, I'm using the sonic side simply because it's a little bit easier to cast. I can make longer casts with it. I can cover more water. And again, I'm just mixing up the bait color based upon the water visibility. If I'm fishing water visibilities that are under 12 inches, I like some type of a chartreuse crawfish. But if I'm fishing, a little bit cleaner, I like some of the greens or browns, that type of stuff is going to work real good. Now, the other application for the sonic side that I found really good is in the summertime of the year, if you've got a stained water lake that has a lot of rock on it, and particularly riprap rock. Say, for example, if you guys fish like Lake Eufaula in Alabama, that type of stuff, those areas that have lots of different causeways and riprap, you can take this sonic side in a shad pattern, like the translucent type shad pattern, put it on 10 pound test line, and I burn it real hard, parallel to those rocks. And that's the great thing I like about the sonic side over, just the traditional handmade one, is you can burn this sonic side. I mean, you can burn it almost like a lipless crankbait, and it works really good anytime you're around riprap rock in hot water, hot weather, or if you have a type of lakes that have much of that shelf rock in dirty water. For example, like down at Grand Lake in Oklahoma, we have a lot of that shelf type flat rock in dirty water, and it's another time the shad pattern sonic side excels under those situations. But and I have caught a few fish on grass around them, but you think this bait would work better around grass than what it does. But I've caught some fish on it, but I haven't like ripped them on it. For the most part, when I'm fishing the flat side crankbaits, it's coming up. It's coming up right now. When that water temperature, you know, the daylight hours are getting longer, the water temperature starts rising a little bit into the upper 40s. You got to try these Flatsides because they're a big deal for those 4-pound plus fish that are in really shallow water. Best thing advice I can give you on it is, you know, work the bait at sort of a medium slow retrieve, do a lot of pausing, a lot of stop and goes, and, you know, adjust the depth that you're fishing to the water clarity. If your water clarity is under 12 inches, get right up on the bank. Those fish are going to be right up on the bank. But if it's that 2 to 3 foot visibility, move out into that 4 to 6 foot zone. And I normally don't use this bait anytime I have water visibilities greater than 3 feet, unless I've got a lot of wind or clouds. But anyway, that's just the deal. That's the comparison between the Megabass Sonic Side and the handmade balsa. They're both great baits. I'm going to add up to a lot of 4-pounders for you this spring, I promise. And if you haven't tried them, give them a try. They're super fun to fish, and you got a real small window on it, and it's coming up. So anyway, that's today's tip. If you guys like the video, hit that like button. Appreciate. Subscribe if you hadn't had a chance to subscribe yet. And we'll be back tomorrow with another lure category. See ya.